Off of Air Force One moments ago. They are in Florida right now. The president spoke to reporters briefly on Air Force One moments ago. He talked about the government shutdown. We are in day 31 now. Keep in mind, 35 days is the record for the longest government shutdown ever. That was during his first term. And then also he talked about SNAP benefits. Of course, they are set to end tomorrow for millions of Americans and about 2 million who live right here in the state of Illinois. So there's plenty to talk about right now during our next couple of hours on Chicago Live. I'm Anita Blanton here in Studio 32. Let me just kind of take you through some of our other big stories as we wait on our first guest to arrive online. We've been making a lot of calls on several big stories to delve in a little bit deeper into over the next couple of hours. We are waiting on the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket to launch. That should be happening in our 2 o'clock hour. They will be hopefully, if all goes well, taking off from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Also, we're going to talk live just as soon as we can with a couple of different lawmakers here as we have been looking at a big transit bill that just went through. Before we get to our first interview, let me also say that we'll be joined by Joliet Township Animal Control and Joliet Police Department. Now, they were sent to a home after neighbors complained about barking, some strong animal odors from a property in that area, and once they got there, they found 45 beagles in cages or running loose in the home. But the story is actually not what you think. So plenty to talk about, but let me get back to that big story of the day, and that is the transit bill, $1.5 billion that has passed, I believe about 4 a.m. here in the state of Illinois. And we want to bring in the person who was ushering it through, and that is State Representative Cam Buckner. Thanks for being back with me today.
Hey, Anita, thank you for having me.
I should say congratulations to you. Yesterday when we talked to you, you didn't know, but you thought you were optimistic, let me say it that way, about the chances of this $1.5 billion transit funding bill making it through. Like I said, about 4 a.m. it did. So let's talk about what shifted from your original proposal to the final draft first.
Yeah, there were a number of small things. So the first proposal that we put forth about, I guess, 48 hours ago now, had some things in there like a billionaire tax. It had some other taxing kind of structures in there that we thought were smart and balanced. But obviously, when you're doing legislation, you've got to get buy-in from both chambers and then the governor's office. And so that piece of legislation really triggered conversations to really ramp up. And over the last 36 to 24 to 36 hours, we've been meeting nonstop, finding ways to fine-tune this and create a piece of legislation that worked. We went from implementing any new taxes in the spaces that we were talking about earlier, including the billionaire tax and the amusement tax. We changed that into shifting some taxes that are already in the coffers, right? Not asking people to pay more for gas tax, but using some of the money on gas tax and pushing it towards transit. Just smart shifts, things that I think put Illinois in the forefront of doing things differently and doing it right. And so here we are. We passed, as you said, we passed the bill in the House at 2:30 in the morning. The Senate passed it at about 4 o'clock this morning. And so it's been a long couple of days, but I'm very proud that we got this done.
Well, be it that you haven't been to sleep very much, I certainly appreciate even more you taking this time out to chat with me about this. You talked about shifting the finances a bit, the funds a bit. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So no statewide tax increases, but Chicago area residents are looking at the sales tax and then also higher tolls. I keep hearing higher tolls, 45 cents more per toll that will increase with inflation. Explain that a little bit more, because a lot of people are a little bit shocked by that part.
I understand. I'll first start off by saying Illinois still has the lowest tolls in the country. If you drive in New York or Los Angeles or Philadelphia, it will cost you about $20 to get, from Brooklyn to Manhattan if you're going a certain way. In Illinois, we've been very smart about not having these high tolls that make it impossible for folks to get around. We also have a system where driving on a tollway is a privilege because it's supposed to be a faster way, but there are still always going to be in Illinois freeways to get everywhere you want to go. There are expressways that don't require tolls, and we all have seen that on our GPS systems when we use them. So that's number one. Number two is that our tollway system is used in a way that 25 to 30% of the folks who ride the system aren't folks who live in the state. They're folks from Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa, and Wisconsin. But lastly, the tollway was looking for a way to create a capital program where they could build new bridges and new roads, and find a way to maintain what we have, right? And this was a perfect opportunity for them to tie into the work that we were doing. They were looking at a toll increase anyway. What we did was we tied that to the consumer price index. We put some money in there for transit, since these things are related. And we are trying to find ways to create a network and a transit system that works for the entire state. And so that was the impetus of the toll increase. It is once again a percentage, so about between 30 and 40% per trip for the folks who ride the system.
And is there anything kind of looped in when you think about people who are like losing SNAP funding, or some type of, if they're on a fixed income, how does that work? Is there anything that's built in for people who may be struggling already?
So there's never been an income-based exceptions in Illinois' toll system. I've always said I'm willing to have that conversation and look into it, but the reason that we have not done that, and some folks in places like New York have done that, because you cannot in New York get from one place to another in certain places without a toll. In Illinois, there's always a free expressway option. The toll is just supposed to be the quicker way, right? And so that's been the impetus of why we have not done that, and that's not included in this bill, but it's something that me and my colleagues are definitely willing to look at.
Okay, let's go back to moving funds. So you diverted, as I understand it, about $860 million in sales tax revenue from motor fuel purchases that currently go to the state's road fund for construction projects. Now, some would say, in a light kind of way, that's like fixing one pothole but leaving another gaping hole. What is your response to that?
Yeah, so we've got to change the way we talk about this. The truth of the matter is that the state doesn't have a road fund. We have a transportation fund, transportation lockbox that was implemented through constitutional amendment in 2016. And what it says is that any money that goes into that lockbox can only be spent on transportation-related issues. Somewhere along the line, people started calling it the road fund, and they thought that the fund was only for roads and bridges and construction. It's never been true. And so while some folks have called it a fund sweep or a diversion, it really is a shift to using the fund for what the Illinois Constitution mandates that it's used for anyway, transportation expenses, which is not just roads and bridges and tollways, right? And so we're pushing it there. And a lot of the pushback really is around us trying to find ways to educate people on what the real meaning for this was. But what also is true is that fund right now has about $3.5 billion in it, just sitting there, right? And what's sitting there is pulling up interest, and a lot of that interest is going to be used in this bill on capital. Last year alone, there was $177 million in interest from that fund, right? And so what we're saying is, like, let's be smart. Let's take this good money and put it into good programs to make sure that we have a transportation network around the state that works for people.
So if someone was not watching our conversation yesterday, I would like you to explain or give us more details about the fiscal cliff and the situation that predicated all of this. So why are we here? What was the funding shortfall projection?
Yeah, we're here for a few reasons, right? We're here because previous to COVID, the way we funded transit in Illinois and Chicago just didn't work, right? We were required that 50% of funding for operations came from the fare box, right? So if people didn't swipe their Venture card and didn't put money, or in the old days, bus coins into the system, then we could not spend money. And that was fine when ridership was moving, but when ridership started going the other way, because there were issues with cleanliness and safety and reliability, that put a strain on the system. Then you add on top of that COVID-19, and COVID-19 happened, and we know that people stopped moving around as much, but that the train system did not stop, right? And so we begin to look and see that we were in some real trouble financially. COVID-19 did, however, come with some money from the federal government, those ARPA dollars, those recovery dollars. However, the recovery dollars dried up, and when those dollars dried up and ridership did not rebound, and we had a system in disarray, the result is a fiscal cliff where we've got a big gap that we have a hard time filling. We also know that people's behaviors change, right? Folks were working from home. They weren't going downtown to their office building. That's not the way that people commute anymore. And so we had to look at how we do things differently. And that's what predicated this fiscal cliff. That cliff initially was $770 million in 2026. But after some number movement and things of that nature, RTA has shrunken the number of that cliff down to 200 million for next year. However, we still see that cliff at about 6 to 700 million in the 2027 fiscal year. And so what we had to do was to get in front of this, to find a stable funding mechanism for CTA, for Metro, and for PACE, not just so our buses and trains continue to run, but for the 3,500 folks who work for Metro, the nearly 11,000 folks who work at CTA, the 1,500 folks who work at PACE, who needed to be able to move forward with their life without worrying that a pink slip was coming this Christmas from their agency that they work for, because they had no stability and no understanding of what was going to happen with their budget.
I'm glad that you mentioned that at the end of your comments there, because the labor unions were initially against you and kind of came on board.
This is right. And this is, listen, it's part of the way legislation works. You put something out there to see how people feel about it, and you begin conversations. You use it as a framework. And eventually you take great pieces from a bunch of different ideas and you create a piece of policy that hopefully works best for people. But the labor unions have been incredibly supportive in this last version of this effort. Whether it's the AFL-CIO or the Chicago Federation of Labor or ATU, which is the Amalgamated Transit Union, the group that represents the people who drive our buses and trains, and who I've spent a lot of time with them and their members. This is a strong bill for them. It provides them protections, and this Christmas, once again, their members won't be getting pink slips. They'll be getting some certainty from their job. They can continue to feed their families based on the work that they do for all of us in the system.
Those are definitely some people who are behind you at this point in time. House Republicans, not so much. I'm going to be talking with the House Republican leader in just a moment here to kind of balance out our coverage. It looks like they wanted you to wait on this. Why not wait?
Yeah, once again, for those 15,000 people I just mentioned who have to be able to make ends meet, they deserve to know that they have a job that they can actually still get paid for. The west side and the south side of Chicago, that for far too long has been left behind when it comes to the way people move around the city and their transit opportunities. They can't wait any longer. For the 63rd and Racine Green Line stop that we're opening back up based on this legislation, those folks have waited, for 30 years to have that station. For the Laramie station on the Blue Line that has not been there and disconnected Black communities on the west side of Chicago, they deserve this, right? So I appreciate my Republican colleagues, and as you say, you're talking to the minority leader, who is a great friend of mine. Tony and I are very close. We can't just keep waiting. We can't keep doing patchwork and kicking the can down the road. This is affecting our constituents. This is affecting the people of this state. And at some point, you got to stop talking about it and you got to be about it.
Well, and then there's Senator DeWitt, who wanted interest from the road fund or transportation fund to pay for public transportation. What's wrong with the way that he saw it?
I think many of the things that Don DeWitt put forth was actually ended up in this bill. Now, the question that you should ask Don DeWitt when you speak to him is, why did he not vote for the bill, even though some of the things that he suggested became a part of it? I will also say, listen, transit cannot be a partisan issue. This is how we get around. And if you look at the bill that passed the House this morning, the third person whose name was on that list, it was Evelina Delgado, myself, and then Brad Stevens, who is a Republican member of the House, a leader who is from the village of Rosemont, who was an integral part of this conversation. And we took many of his ideas. Brad wasn't there yesterday because he wasn't feeling well, but if he was, he would have voted for it as well, right? And so Listen, I think there are a lot of things that Republicans and Democrats can fight about and fight on, and we will continue to do that. I don't think transit should be one of them.
So you mentioned Rosemont, some of the suburbs. There's also the what's in it for me for like folks who live downstate. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. It seems like for some Republicans, the $129 million sales tax that should be going to downstate is far less than the $200 million they initially expected. What happened?
Well, when we ran the numbers, the number that the downstate system needed to be able to get over this hump was $80 million, right? And so we said we don't want to just make it patchwork, and we wanted to give them enough to actually make it work, right? And so there's 129 now, which is obviously more than 80 million. There is the 30%, I'm sorry, the $30 million that's from the interest of the road fund, which puts them at around 159. Their job is to fight for more for their people, and they should always do that. And we should always find ways to give more to people. The most important thing for me is that if we have capital projects that are actually moving and money that's not stuck in the queue, that people are finding a way to get shovels in the ground and shoring up their infrastructure. And so this is not over. This is not the end of this. This is a starting point. And as I told all of my Republican friends and colleagues there, I want to work with them to make sure that we can remain true to our word and give downstate what they need as well, because Chicago doesn't work with downstate, and frankly, vice versa. Downstate cannot work without Chicago.
Yeah, for sure. So let's go over reforms. Where do reforms end up in your bill? What in the final version of it, what are we looking at where that's concerned?
Yeah, so the reforms are huge. In fact, the reforms were the part that we spent the most time on. Last year, we I think had about 30 meetings between the Senate, the House, and the governor's office. We spent a lot of time with the House Working Group, hearing from folks about what was important to them. Senator DeWitt put forth a lot of these reform ideas on how we make the systems work better. So what has happened is we've had these bifurcated systems that have competed with each other instead of working together. RTA, which has been the umbrella organization to kind of pull these folks in, has not done a lot of planning and things that we thought created for smart systems and accountability, right? And so in this bill, there's a lot of accountability measures on data. We want to know what you're spending money on and if it worked, so we can go back to the table and figure out if we should keep doing that or not. There's integration of the system. And what do I mean by that? I mean fair integration, right? You don't have to use 4 different apps to get on the system. I mean scheduling integration. The Metra and CTA and PACE scheduling mechanisms actually working together. We right-size governance. Before we got here, there were 47 members of the CTA, RTA, Metra, and PACE boards, if you put it all together. It's 47 members appointed by a bunch of different bodies, and no one knew who was in charge. Now we've got 20 members, right? That's a big cut, and that cut is based on efficiency, about making sure that the city and the collar counties in the NEDA region can all find a way to work together. And so, listen, when people talk about ghost buses and when they talk about not being able to call someone if something is happening on the train, we've got transit ambassadors now. When they talk about the safety and security, we've got a safety and law enforcement task force that's going to be working in this space as well. We are doing all the things that people have said that they want from a system that moves them around. We still got a lot more work to do, but I will tell you, Anita, this is the most comprehensive and consequential reform legislation when it comes to transit in the history of this country.
And who's on the board? Because it seems like there's some issues there in terms of who's on the board and who's not on the board.
Well, I don't know if there's issues or there's legislation. There will always be some folks who have things to say about it, right? But the NEDA board, the governor has appointments. The Cook County Board president has appointments for suburban Cook County. The mayor of Chicago has appointments, and there are appointments from the collar counties, right? So DuPage, Will, McHenry, Lake, and Will counties to try to have a balanced approach to this. The way RTA works today with all these different appointing agencies and all these different boards, once again, there's no continuity. There's a lot of chaos. This is intended to fix that, to streamline it, so that we know who's in charge, we know where they're coming from, who they represent, and they can be both transparent and accountable.
Okay, now you suggested that I say or ask about things that were put into the bill that Republicans asked for, even though they didn't end up getting their vote. What else have you said to your Republican colleagues? What has the conversation been like in getting to this point, and who did join you in the end?
Well, listen, I have to give, as I said, a lot of kudos to Senator DeWitt, Senator Seth Lewis. Both of them have been part of conversations for the last 2 years, and they've given a lot of input. Right now, why they decided not to vote on it is, something that they've got to talk about and explain. I'm sure they have their reasons. I also have to tilt my hat to Leader McCombie in the House, who has for a long time talked about pushing partisanship and making sure that the majority is not the only people at the table. And she lent us, I think, one of her most dynamic superstars in her caucus, Brad Stevens, to help work on this issue. And Brad brought so much real life experience and expertise and balance to this conversation. And so, listen, as I've said, Anita, I don't really think that this is a Republican-Democrat fight. I think there are a lot of things that we will continue to fight about. I think when you talk to my friend, the Republican leader, she will tell you that even though she's probably not happy with some of the shifting of the funds, I bet you she will tell you that she's very happy that we didn't put the $1.50 delivery fee on the board in May. And that's something we can agree on, right? Just finding ways to be smart and balanced and working with each other, because if transit doesn't work in Chicago or Savannah, Illinois, or Carbondale, Illinois, then the whole state is in a worse position.
All right, Representative Cam Buckner, we appreciate your time. Get some sleep.
I'm going to try. Thank you, Anita.
All right, thank you. We appreciate it. And let me just go ahead and bring in House Republican Leader Tony McCombie. She is on the line right now, so let's continue this conversation, shall we? We were just hearing from State Representative Cam Buckner about this $1.5 billion transit bill passing in the House at about 2:30 this morning, 4 a.m. for the Senate. And we've been waiting to hear some Republican response to it as it was driven by Democrats. So, Representative McCombie, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for joining this conversation. I don't know if you were able to hear Representative Buckner as he was speaking there, but he did give you kudos for bipartisanship along the way, you and also Brad Stevens. He says he knows you're not happy about maybe some of the shifting in dollars that took place, but he also talked about the $1.50 delivery fee that did not happen in May. What's your response to this bill passing?
Oh, well, the bill definitely got better. And the first bill that came over from the Senate, he's right, the $1.50 delivery charge was a non-starter. And even the transit bill, I don't even know, is it a day ago or 2 days ago, with the various taxes on that, was also a non-starter. So the bill that we actually had before us, although we had a delay on the language, by far was much better than the other two. But he's right. I am very concerned about the change through downstate.
Yeah. So that funding that was supposed to be about $200 million went down to $129, but he says that what they needed was like 80, so it would still be over what the need was. What's your take on that?
Well, if we're going to talk about the need for the transit for this year was about $230 million. So if that's the case, why are we passing a bill for $2.5 billion? Because that's the spend total. So that's really not a fair statement to say on need. The problem is there was a deal made between, and Leader Buckner was not part of that. With the gas tax, there was a bipartisan bill drafted that had 20 Republicans in support and helping craft that when the gas tax, there's a sales tax on our gas tax, a double tax. Republicans and many Democrats don't like that. The agreement was, well, if we can't get rid of that, then that needs to go back to roads and bridges and infrastructure, not transit, roads and bridges and infrastructure. And the downstate districts 2 through 9 compared to Chicago District 1 was going to get 55% of that cut. And, people don't mind paying taxes if they're going to get something for it. That goes down to zero. That was a deal made by Republicans and Democrats, and that deal is no longer on the table. It's voided, and that went down to zero. They're giving us basically 15% now and telling downstate that it has to be spent only on transit. So that is a big concern for anybody outside of District 1.
Yeah, one of the things that he mentioned was the fact that there's been so much talk about that road fund that he says really should be just a transportation fund, or termed just a transportation fund, and that maybe the initial outlook on what that fund was supposed to be used for has actually been maybe misrepresented in years past.
Well, I don't disagree. The road builders and the road labor was instrumental in getting that together as well, and just like they were on this one. But 20% of the new revenue in the original bill did go to transit. So to say that transit didn't get anything would be false. So there was a deal for transit in the capital bill that was passed several years ago. Now to shift it completely away from the road fund, and also too, they're counting on about $200 million from the interest alone. So now there's a motivation to keep the overall balance of the road fund high, so they can collect that $200 million on the interest, and we would like it to be spent. The state of Illinois shouldn't be holding taxpayer dollars and not spending them. The point of the gas tax and the sales tax on the gas tax is to fix our roads and bridges, put money into transit, of which it did, and now they're just reversing that.
Yeah, and then there's the the higher tolls. Where did the higher tolls come? If you're given a hierarchy of things that you thought no to, where did higher tolls kind of rank in the hierarchy?
Well, I think that's probably where the real fix was, to raise the RTA tax, sales tax in the RTA region for the 6 counties of which they did, and then to raise the toll. I think that was the initial plan, and that would have actually got them where they needed to on that revenue. So to take the sweeps and make those sweeps not just a one-time sweep, it's a forever sweep, is, I think, disingenuous, quite honestly. But the tolls, for me, when I have to go to the office to Naperville or Chicago, that's going to be a $10 round trip for me in addition. Not let alone the folks that are using it on a commercial. That's a 30% increase. So 45 cents on every toll to go up. And, I think a lot of people don't realize how much the tolls are because we all have the automated. But they're going to start seeing that when they're going to have auto replenishing all of the time through the iPass. So I'm also untrusting of how that money will be spent. It states that the money generated from that toll increase will be used for transit capital on the toll. I'm leery, pretty untrusting, and I actually think it'll probably be used for operations, and that's not what it's made for. But time will only tell on that.
Yeah, there's much more to come on that. So I asked him, and I want to ask you the very same question. From your perspective, how did we get in this situation that needed this type of discussion and possibly some of these options here? How did we get to being so close on the fiscal cliff to going over?
Bad management. It's very simple, bad management. And I think that's another reason this governance piece is so important. So let's, the idea, especially all along, was, okay, let's get them to that, that 230 million. Let's get the new board in place and let's see what their ideas are. Let's see what they can do for efficiencies, for safety. To put an ambassador or a task force in place isn't really going to address the safety issues that a lot of people have. And those that are, homeless, that are on, our systems. I think we needed to, well, I know we needed to do a short-term fix for the revenue and let the new board work together, figure out what's wrong. And I do believe there still is some unbalance for the collar counties because, yeah, they do get representation, but Cook County and the mayor, certainly, and the governor are still going to have override over the collar counties. So that's going to be a real hard pill to swallow.
Is this similar, and I know I'm giving a far out, comparison, but still, just for the sake of this, is this similar to, say, the government shutdown, where one side of the aisle is saying, let's do something now, and another side of the aisle is saying, well, go ahead, open things up, and then we can talk. Are you saying, I asked him about the weight in this, and he's saying people who need this transportation fix needed it now, versus you saying, well, let's put the board there and then allow them, but more time passes then.
Yeah, I think to put $260 million into a kitty for them is substantial dollars. I understand what he's saying about the immediate, but $260 or $30 million would have solved that problem temporarily. And if it was so necessary to do right now, why was the amendment filed at the end of the evening in early morning hours to change the effective date to June of 2026? If this was immediate, they should have kept the effective date as immediate, and they did not do that.
Okay. There were other conversations, I know, in terms of what Republicans were asking for or thought needed to be done. What was that conversation like that you knew of or that you participated in?
Yeah, and I will give both Leader Buckner and Leader Avedina. They were transparent. They did work very well with Leader Stevens on my side, and certainly communicated with me. I would say they're probably not completely happy with this bill either. And but to have government get involved on these issues, I mean, this is something that on the ground, it needs to happen by the people on the ground and in that board. Overall, I believe they really tried to have good, transparent conversation. But that being said, it doesn't always, with rank and file especially, what comes down from the Speaker, the President of the Senate, and the Governor ultimately is how it goes. So overall, I'm glad they allowed the Leader Stevens to be involved, and I think he did add a lot of value and a lot of ideas. Is he 100% happy with this legislation? No, he's not. But I'm going to guess nobody really is.
What were some things that he specifically advocated for that did make it in and got support from Republicans? Because one of the things that Leader Buckner talked about was the fact that there were some issues that Republicans came to the table with that did end up in the final draft that still then didn't get a vote for.
Yeah, and the RTA tax, to tax themselves for the transit, that was certainly something I believe would have been agreed upon. It's a user fee. I think to raise the user fees in Chicago would have been a better option rather than they're not allowing a rate increase on the user for a year. Which I think is really disingenuous because they haven't been raised in so many years already. So certainly the RTA, I think the toll, and those were things that were agreed upon. I don't know how the cut of the toll was, but I can tell you taking downstate out of the picture for roads and bridges, that was not part of the plan.
Yeah. What would you have suggested instead when he says, okay, prior to COVID funding, already funding wasn't working before COVID. Obviously, COVID made things much worse. Ridership went down, recovery dollars dried up, and he said that the system just went into disarray. What would have been your course of action?
Well, they need to look at efficiencies, and that certainly I don't think was addressed. I mean, you're going to see ridership still down. So are we looking at maybe, smaller buses, maybe less routes, and maybe not expanding rail right now until we build the ridership? So I think to look at, and that governance piece, I think would have been and will be important as we go forward, and may have to evaluate on a state level how things work, but to really look at the efficiencies of that, I think is the important piece and probably a better. So do a short-term revenue fix, change the governance, look at efficiencies, and let's reevaluate. And even if we would have waited till the final hours at the end of May on May 31st, what would have been the difference with the effective date of June 1, and you would have had some time with that new board. Now we're not looking until June 1, and so it's just going to delay that problem.
Well, hopefully the conversation continues. I certainly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
All right, take care. Have a great weekend. It's 1:36, everybody. We'll be right back. All right, it's Friday. Are you ready for some football? There will be plenty of it over this weekend on all levels. And of course, they're getting ready for big games under bright lights. And I'm just going to say right now that when we invited Mount Carmel on at the beginning of the season, the Caravans were ready for a fight to stay on top, and they've had to do just that as they now get ready for the Illinois High School Association playoffs. So, big question this weekend, who wants to make a little history? We have Phil Seagroves, the Mount Carmel Athletic Director. Thanks so much for making time in what I hear has been a busy day for you.
Yeah, very busy day here in preparation. Probably spent the last 5 hours out in our stadium grooming it, getting ready for tomorrow, but we just want it to be perfect tomorrow when Mount Carmel and Loyola take the field.
Tell me about this rivalry.
Well, it's a rivalry that dates back for many, many decades, but I would say it's probably intensified a lot in probably the past 10 or 15 years. Mount Carmel and Loyola have been very good for a long time, but specifically what I was thinking of earlier today when John Holisek, the former head coach at Loyola, when he took over, I'm guessing that was about 10 or 15 years ago, things really did intensify. There were some great games in the 90s. I started coaching here in the lower levels in 1996, and I know there were many games way before I even became a part of Mount Carmel, but I'd say the past 10 years it's really intensified, and both schools have piled up, multiple state championships in the meantime.
Yeah, it is a game that so many people want to see, and I'm sure will come out too. Tell me about your team.
Yeah, we have good balance across the board with great senior leadership, quarterback, and with a lot of lineage here. Emmett Dowling, whose dad played here and his brothers have played here, and now it's his turn. We've got good balance on the offensive and defensive side. But we have a lot of young players too that are making strides, from a sophomore wide receiver and Marshawn Thornton, great junior players, and Roman Ikwabikwe. But I think what really solidifies our team is our defense, and we've got great players, local Southside kids here in Gavin Conjar and Stephen Winkler, who are kind of the heart and soul of the defense. How
do you stay so dominant, really, for generations at this point in time?
Well, I think tradition has a lot to do with it. I've been a part of Mount Carmel for 34 years. I didn't attend Mount Carmel, but there's just something special here. If you look around in the hallways here, the legacies that walk up and down the hallway, you have some that go back, 4 generations. Some boys that are here, their great grandfathers went here. So I think tradition's a really big part of it. I took my son to a Halloween party yesterday. He's a kindergarten boy, and he had on a sweatshirt that said, "Someday I'll be a part of the caravan." So, it's a lot about tradition here. And, our kids are very proud, and they understand the fact that, they stand on the shoulders of the men who played here before them.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And I hear there are some other things that are connected to the game. So tell me about the atmosphere right now. What other things happen before a game like this?
Well, a lot of preparation that goes into it. I have an assistant here who really runs the office. Her name is Mary Mann, and she has done so much this week, to get everything prepared. If you think about it, everything on top from, the security that has to be run here, right? The Father's Club and Mother's Club is amazing here at Mount Carmel. And if you come tomorrow, you'll get a chance to see firsthand of just how intricate our Father's Club and Mother's Club is here at Mount Carmel, and sporting events, academic events, social events, open houses, but everything from getting the security ready to making sure that the hot dogs are ready, to having people in place to park the folks that are going to be coming from Loyola and, fans from Mount Carmel. So it's not just we show up and turn the lights on and, play football. It's a whole week of event and planning to make sure that the day is a safe one, a happy one, and an eventful one for everyone.
Yeah. What happened? Take me through the last time you all met up.
You mean with Loyola?
Yes.
Well, ma'am, actually, we played last week.
Right.
Which you may or may not know.
I hear it was a nail biter.
Last week, in week 9. And like I said, this rivalry goes back for many decades, but it's been extremely intense the past 10 years. And you can throw the records out the window. I remember years back, we were sitting at 4 wins, and we had to beat a very good Loyola team to get into the playoffs. And we did just that. And I mean, it was really unexpected. So what I would say tomorrow is, Loyola is the defending 3-time 8A state champion. We're the defending 3-time 7A state champion. You can throw all the records out the window. It doesn't matter who's 10-0, who's 4-5, whatever the case may be. It's going to be a smash mouth Catholic League football game. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, but how do you get, the young men to face the same opponents in a different way in back-to-back weeks?
Well, I leave that up to the coaching staff. I do coach basketball here, but it is football season. I was proud to say I coach football here at Mount Carmel for 19 years. There really is, if it's our job, if we have to motivate the kids, then we're in big trouble. These young men here at Mount Carmel, and I'm sure as Loyola as well, they understand the importance of this. And you have to remember something. If you lose tomorrow, your season's over. Oof. And I think that's a big motivating factor in our young men.
It has to be. It has to be. It should be for all athletes if that's what's on the line. Yeah. Okay, right. So what happens from here if you win?
Well, it's a matchup, and we don't want to look ahead, but I think I could say that we will face either Belleville East or West Aurora. Depending on what team wins, we could have close to a 6-hour ride to downstate Illinois and play at Belleville East. Or if West Aurora wins, they will come to us. So it's just kind of how the IHSA has things laid out. it's one way or the other. But I think we really need to worry about Loyola Academy right now.
Absolutely. When you look across that field to the visitor side, and you've given them their kudos, but I'm sure you've done a little scouting. I mean, you're not the head coach, but what concerns you about that team from a matchup standpoint? Okay, we're in the 2 o'clock hour, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining us, thank you for being here on Chicago Live. So on Thursday, Governor Pritzker signed an executive order that will direct $20 million in state funding from the Illinois Department of Human Services and another fund to help with this SNAP benefits that are set to cut off tomorrow. We have a live picture now to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who is making a similar announcement for his state. Let's listen in.
Of state funds through the programs to 13 food banks across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that serve each of our 67 counties. And I again need to thank these state lawmakers who are here, who've consistently voted in favor of my budgets that include this funding. And in the budget that we are getting done now, it's going to include additional funding for this initiative, and I want to thank them for their work. Through this initiative, the Commonwealth will be able to drive out funding to Feeding Pennsylvania, which then distributes the money to our food banks, including Philabundance, who can then use those dollars to purchase fresh food from farmers and food vendors. When I signed this declaration earlier, that also allows us to cut through the red tape and get funds to food banks as quickly as possible. The dollars that I've released today will be in our food banks, allowing them to purchase more food for this coming week. There is no delay. We are getting stuff done here in Pennsylvania. The declaration I signed also provides me as governor with more authority and more tools to address this crisis. But let me be clear, Pennsylvania cannot possibly fill the gap left by losing $366 million a month, which is the amount of money that goes on individual SNAP cards each month here in Pennsylvania. And remember, the feds will not reimburse us if we seek to put dollars on that card. So we are instead relying on our food banks, turning to them to make sure that those who are hungry, those who are in need, get the help that they need. In addition to the work we're doing at the state level, over the last 24 hours, I have worked closely with the private sector and asked Pennsylvanians who are fortunate, ask Pennsylvanians who have done well to step up and help their neighbors in this time of need. And I wanted to announce today that as a result of my calls to those leaders in the private sector, we have raised an initial $1 million that will go on top of the state funds that we are releasing. Those individuals have donated to our SNAP Emergency Release Fund. Some of them wanted to be identified or were willing to be identified, and some wanted to do it anonymously. I wanted to take a moment to thank Thomas Tull. I want to take a moment to thank Connie Williams. I want to take a moment to thank Mark Cuban. I want to take a moment to thank David Edelman. Each of these individuals have stepped up in the initial hours of our campaign to help feed Pennsylvanians on top of the private or public dollars that we are releasing. Every single dollar that is raised into the SNAP Emergency Relief Fund will go directly to Feeding Pennsylvania and their network of food banks. Those dollars will not flow through the state. They'll go directly into Feeding Pennsylvania. I want to just say to those Pennsylvanians again how grateful I am that they are stepping up, and I want to invite others who are fortunate in this time of need to step up and help as well. Pennsylvania is a wonderful place where people look out for one another. They lift one another up. And in moments of darkness, this Commonwealth can always find some light. And so I want to thank those who have already agreed to step up and urge others to do the same. Look, I think making sure our neighbors have enough to eat, it's one of the most basic foundational things that we can do. Our food banks do an amazing job of that with an assist from our wonderful farmers to help people who are in need, people who are hungry. It really is a righteous cycle. And I want to invite anyone who is fortunate enough in their lives to contribute to the SNAP Emergency Relief Fund. And if you can't contribute to the SNAP Emergency Relief Fund, come do a shift here at Philabundance. Go over to Cher, go to Jerry, go wherever you can to make a difference. Volunteer your time and help your neighbors who are in need. That's something my family and I have done for many years, and I must tell you, it's a beautiful thing to not only pack those boxes, but then take those boxes to the people who need it most and see the smile on their face, the relief on their face, knowing that their neighbors were there to help them. In the midst of all of this, I want our fellow Pennsylvanians to just remember who we're talking about here. 1 out of every 8 people who walk down the streets in our Commonwealth rely on SNAP. We're talking about that single mom who's working long hours, who's doing all the right things, but struggling to pay the bills and just needs a little bit of extra help. That grandmom here in South Philly who can't work, who's got a disability, but needs to needs a little bit more help to be able to cover the groceries for her or maybe for one of her grandchildren. These are real people, and we can't lose sight of that. With all the bickering and the fighting and chaos in D.C., we have to remember these are real people who need help, and that's why Pennsylvania is standing up to do this now. I know folks are worried, and I know that what we're doing here is important, but it can't possibly meet the full gap that exists. We're going to keep doing everything we can to pump more money into these food banks and help people in their time of need. And I just want to invite all of our fellow Pennsylvanians to do the same to help us here. And if you are someone who is in need, if you're wondering where you turn tomorrow when you don't get your SNAP help, I want you to dial 211, or I want you to go to pa211.org, and you can find a food bank in your area that's going to be receiving this extra help, and they'll have what you need to help you stay on your feet. Most importantly, to my fellow Pennsylvanians, I want you to know I got your back, and we're here for you. Thank you. With that, it really is my pleasure now to bring up Robin Perkins. She is not only a SNAP recipient, but a participant in Philabundance's Community Kitchen program, a wonderful person who just has like a warmth to her that I picked up on immediately when we got the chance to meet a few moments ago. I want you to hear from Robin. I want you to understand the impact these SNAP cuts are having. Ladies and gentlemen, please meet Robin Perkins.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Robin Perkins. I was born and raised in Nicetown, Philly, and I'm currently a resident of South Philadelphia. I'm a student in Philabundance Community Job Training Program. Throughout life, I've utilized public benefits such as SNAP and WIC. I recently lost my job of 7 years in April 2025, but I had to figure out what I wanted to do next, so I connected to Philabundance's Community Kitchen. Throughout life, I've been a SNAP participant, both as a mother, raising children, and even now as a single woman and a student. I have close family members that utilize SNAP. I have been receiving communication on SNAP being paused because of government shutdown, and it makes me sigh and ask myself, what can I do? What SNAP means to me, as a person, I need to make tough choices when I'm going grocery shopping. What can I buy? Will it cover that? Now that entire resource is gone for the month of November. Last time I received benefits was October. I have $30 left that I'm holding on to for the holiday season. I want people to know why I think funding SNAP is so important. It's the only resource for obtaining food for some people. There are some people who have jobs or some who are unemployed that all use SNAP. I'm grateful to be part of a community that is coming together to pool resources and take care of each other. I really urge your support and more awareness and importance to fund SNAP. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Robin. I want to invite up Julie Bancroft, who does an amazing job of making sure these dollars get out to places like Philabundance and support our communities. Julie?
Thank you, Governor Shapiro, and thank you, Robin, for sharing your story and being here today. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I am honored to speak on behalf of our 9 food banks, which serve 1.7 million people each year, including nearly 500,000 children. Hunger in Pennsylvania has increased 44% over 2 years. while our food banks distribute over 237 million pounds.
And we are so grateful for all of the work of the food banks across our country and really stepping up right now as they're all anticipating a greater need from so many people that they already saw and people who will come to them maybe for the first time now that these SNAP benefits are set to be cut tomorrow. The deal kind of rested on if the shutdown was still in place by November 1st, which it is at this point in time. It is day 31 now. Again, 35 days would be the record for the longest running shutdown. And at this point in time, both Pennsylvania and the state of Illinois have joined in with 25 states that are suing the Trump administration over SNAP benefits ending this upcoming weekend, tomorrow really. It's a coalition of Democratic-run states that are suing to prevent hopefully, billions in cuts to this federal food assistance that will affect so many. For the state of Pennsylvania, where we were just listening into a heartfelt story and also listening into the governor talk about the fact that he has ordered now money to be used from emergency funds to go to these food banks that will help people who are losing their SNAP benefits. He says also he announced that there are several, you would think, millionaires, billionaires who have stepped in with this SNAP Emergency Relief Fund to also help out in this time of need as well. So he has raised a set amount of dollars that will be on top of the state funds that will now be going to these different, these food assistance areas, like we were just hearing from there. So different states that are trying to do what they can, these governors doing what they can to fill this gap in this time of need. Again, both Pennsylvania and Illinois joining in this lawsuit that's taken place. And again, our Governor Pritzker, has signed an executive order similar to what we were just hearing there from Governor Shapiro. And for Thursday's executive order that came down from Governor Pritzker, it directs the state to work with food banks and food pantries, grocers, universities, and other community organizations to try to mitigate these cuts. For both Illinois and Pennsylvania, that's about 2 million people in each one of our states. 2 million people in the state of Illinois that will be affected by this cut to SNAP funding. The Illinois Department of Human Services is now going to be receiving this from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. What they had been receiving, this will now fund that lack there. The federal agency, again, cutting the supplemental assistance there on November 1st unless there is a resolution to the shutdown. And at this point in time, it doesn't look like we're going to get any resolution to the shutdown. There's also the state's Bridge Reserve Fund that has about $100 million in it, as I understand it, and that was created to fill short-term gaps. So that's also going to be accessed in this time of need as well. So several different things, again, that are being done in each state to try to help people in this time of need. We're seeing it on the state level. We're seeing it on the city level. We're also seeing it just from community organizations and from businesses. You heard there from Governor Shapiro talking about people who have maybe abundance right now who are going to be helping out in their own way. And he called out many different names there of people who have given money from their own personal funds to help out with their efforts there. But if you were watching us right here on Chicago Live on Thursday, we introduced you to several people who were trying to help out in their own ways. We introduced you to the owners of a pizza parlor that is helping out by giving free lunches away to people who may be losing their SNAP benefits over the next few days here. And so we heard from them. We also heard from the Hammond Fire Department that is teaching people how to stretch their dollars. So everyone trying to do what they can in their own way. And again, now we're hearing more of these executive orders come down from the state level to try to fill the gap as federal funding is set to end tomorrow for SNAP. It's about 2:15 right now. We'll take a quick break and we have another conversation on the opposite side of it. 2:17 right now, and welcome back, everyone. You know, typically if you heard that there were 45 dogs found at a home, you would think that it was totally in disarray. But I want to bring in Sergeant Dwayne English of Joliet Police Department to explain what happened in this area of your township here. So it was the Joliet Township Animal Control and Joliet Police Department that were sent to a home, and what'd you find?
Yeah, so last Tuesday, October 21st, we were notified by the Joliet Township Animal Control of that they were going to an address in our city in Joliet here after receiving a report of numerous dogs at the residence. Once our officers arrived, they met up with the JTAC personnel, and we found 45 beagles inside of a home. It was a ranch-style home. Numerous beagles. They were all throughout the house. Some were loose, some were in cages. But I think what's most important to point out in this situation is that the dogs all appeared to be in good health and to be well cared for, to be honest.
I mean, that's really astounding. There's no suspicion of animal cruelty, no arrests that were made. So what do we think was happening here? Was it just a breeding situation?
Well, I think what the animal control people have found out that the dogs, I mean, obviously the dogs were being inbred within the home. For that reason, we're not completely sure why. There was I don't believe there's any intent to sell the dogs or for the dogs to leave the home. Other than just the mere number of dogs, there, like you said, yeah, there was no report of cruelty. There was no signs of cruelty. Like I said, the dogs appeared to be in good health. And it's just one of the situations where, we're looking at it from kind of all angles, like we do in many investigations. Is this a hoarding situation? Is this someone who simply just really loves beagles? And you are correct. There are no charges in this investigation. The owners of the dogs were compliant and cooperative all throughout this investigation with the Joliet Township Animal Control and the Joliet Police Department, and they agreed to sign over 42 of the 45 dogs so that to stay under the limit. So the city of Joliet has a city ordinance which requires that homes have no more than 3 dogs. So in lieu of receiving a city ordinance violation, they agreed to sign over the dogs. Let's be clear, the most important part of all of this is like the immediate welfare of these dogs. And from what I understand and what I've learned in the days since is that there has been a large and very positive public response to these dogs, and I'm hearing that many of these dogs are being adopted into warm, loving homes.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I mean, I'm so confused about what this initial situation was, that you might have wanted 45 pets, that you weren't selling them. But, okay, so what is your message, I guess? I mean, it's important for you to state, as you did, what the ordinance is for that area. Is it a rural area where these dogs were? I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the setting.
No, so the 1400 block of Bury Street is actually right on the our city limits, along with Crest Hill, and it's not a rural area; it's an urban area. Like I said, it was a smallish ranch-style home where these dogs were found. Our message for the community is we want people to enjoy their pets, whether they be dogs, cats, or what have you. However, we also urge the responsible ownership of these pets. Again, I mean, there are many questions still that are that remain from this incident, and again, you have to wonder and you have to question the level of care that we provide for our pets. They're family, and we try to provide them with everything that we would a typical family member. But when that number rises up to 40 plus, up to 45. You wonder, how can someone care for that many pets? I will say that it was communicated to me by the officers that responded that the people at the home knew every dog by their name.
Oh my.
Yeah, so there was, there was a high level of interaction with these dogs, and and that's why there didn't seem to be any sort of belief of cruelty or anything like that. So, so moving forward from this, it's just we like I mentioned, we just want the proper, the proper care of dogs and cats and other pets, and it's just not normal, and sometimes just not feasible, especially for that type of area. It's an urban area. It's one of our older neighborhoods here in Joliet, and we want to be able to give these pets enough space, and so that was another reason why it was important that these pets have their own home where provide them more room to grow and thrive.
Yeah, and to give the neighbors some relief, it looks like they were complaining about all of the barking that was going on. So I see here, it looks like all of the beagles have found placement. Really glad to see that.
Yes.
And that happened very quickly. So great things, at least from that standpoint, in terms of people helping out in your community. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. 2:23 right now. We'll be right back. .225, and I want to read just a portion of a notice that came to us from Springfield from the Illinois Coalition of End-of-Life Options. It says early this morning, the Illinois Senate approved and sent to the governor's desk Senate Bill 1950, also known as Deb's Law. It's a measure that allows mentally capable, terminally ill adults with a prognosis of 6 months or less to live the option of obtaining a prescription medication that they can decide to take so that they can die peacefully and end their suffering. It is a big deal, and I want to bring in State Senator Linda Holmes, who sponsored this bill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Explain why you moved this forward.
Because there has been such an outcry from people that have wanted to have this measure in place. Basically, it's an end-of-life option. There are several options you have, whether it be hospice, palliative care, pain management, all of these options. This option quite simply says if you receive a diagnosis of less than 6 months to live, you have the option to request a prescription from your doctor, so that if the suffering becomes too intense, you can take a prescription and peacefully end your life.
I'm hearing options. I'd like to know what the pushback was as you were advocating for this bill.
There was some pushback. Some people on religious grounds feel that it wasn't appropriate. Some people, there were some claims that those in the disability community were afraid it would marginalize them or they would be coerced into taking this measure. But we do have data from back. A lot of people don't realize Oregon actually passed this measure in 1997. And in that time, there have not been cases of coercion or abuse of this procedure. So that was one thing. But it just took a while to educate people and make sure people understood why this was needed as a choice.
Were there some of those things that you took into consideration that maybe, from the initial form of your bill to where it is now that were taken into consideration and maybe shifted some of the priorities in your bill?
We did. What we did that was especially important was all the guardrails that are in place to make sure it cannot be abused and to make sure that the person, you make an initial request to your doctor verbally. You then have to make a written request. That doctor then has to have another doctor examine you and make sure that the diagnosis, that they agree with it, that you have less than 6 months to live. If either of those doctors has any concern whatsoever that you have the mental capacity to make an informed decision, you then must see a licensed healthcare specialist, mental health care specialist, to make sure that you are knowingly and willingly going into this. So we have all of those measures in place to make sure that there isn't abuse.
And does there have to be someone present when you take that?
We certainly, it's advised that somebody is present, and most people do. What most people do, and I want to also clarify something because people think that you're totally alone in this. Most people that do this, 88% of them are already in hospice care, and most people have their families or a loved one with them, because they want to have their loved ones with them. Their loved ones want to be with them. So while it's not required, it is certainly advised. And the patient has to be able to self-administer the medication. Nobody can give it to you. You don't have a doctor that's administering it. It is the patient themselves that takes the medication.
Okay, where do we go from here with this? When does it take effect? What's the next step?
The next step, now that it has passed in both the House and the Senate, is to be sent to the governor. It is then up to the governor to sign it. Once the governor signs it, it effectively becomes law 9 months after the date of the governor's signature.
Okay. All right. Please keep us updated on where things go from here.
I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well. It's 2:30 right now. We'll be right back. 2:32, and it's 7:32 this morning. FBI Director Kash Patel posted on X saying, "This morning, the FBI thwarted a potential terrorist attack and arrested multiple subjects in Michigan who were allegedly plotting a violent attack over Halloween weekend. More details to come." I have our sister stations, Fox 2 Detroit, Scott Wolchek on the line right now to try to get more details about where we stand in this investigation. Thanks for your time.
Hi there. Yeah, you know what? This is something where there's a lot of details that we got to find out, and we're working to get to the bottom of this. You actually see me. I'm here on Horger Street. This is in Dearborn, okay? So we don't know exactly if the National FBI is involved with the raid here, but there has been FBI agents going in and out of a home here on Horger Street all day, pulling out a whole bunch of evidence. We also had a couple other FBI raids happening maybe 2 miles down, as well as in Inkster. People that I've talked with have all kind of said that this has been a very scary thing. The family that lives in this home right here behind me, they all say that they were a super nice family. Now, we do know multiple people have been arrested, but it's one of those things where there's still a lot of details to come, and we're still working on figuring out exactly what happened, because Director Kash Patel did say that they foiled an allegedly violent plot that was linked to a terrorist organization.
Yeah, there was some concern, and we've seen this in prior big cases over the last few months, that maybe he posted ahead of things, that things really weren't where they needed to be for it to be public yet.
Yeah, you know what? And I have heard the same type of concerns just from doing my research on this story and looking into it throughout the day. Because, you know, one thing that is a little odd, right? So we know that the FBI's been out here all morning, but it feels a little preemptive to make a tweet like that before the raids are actually all said and done, right? You know, the FBI is kind of a mysterious organization sometimes, so you kind of have to wonder, was this preemptive, was it not? And a lot of us are still kind of waiting on a little more details from Director Patel to see what exactly is the situation.
Yeah, and so I'm seeing this was an alleged plot involving a group of young people, some of whom are minors, who had been engaging online with Islamic extremist content, but that there's no public documents that have been filed. Have you all been, have you had maybe a producer or someone looking through some public files to try to see if they find anything?
Yeah, you know what? We have been digging and looking, but we haven't seen anything publicly filed just yet. It is one of those situations where it's a developing, it's a developing storyline. So it's a pretty complicated and interesting thing, because we've got so many different scenes where we've seen the FBI actually running in to these homes, leaving with evidence, but we don't even have the details from the FBI on, are these directly linked to that tweet?
Yeah. And then there's just a heightened sense of fear for the entire neighborhood that you touched on there. What's the next course of your day? Where do things go for you in this investigation?
You know, I think that as soon as I get a little bit of time on my hands, I'm going to try and check out another one of these scenes. Now, we had another reporter who was out at a scene maybe 2 miles from here, but we've heard there was possibly another one. But it does seem as though the FBI has kind of wrapped up their raids. We're just really waiting on some details. I was able to speak to some neighbors out here, and they all said that the people that lived in the home, super nice people. Now, they did say that they had a few teenagers living in the home, maybe 5 children there, but they weren't able to see who exactly was taken into custody. We have seen in probably the past 10 minutes or so, a lawyer, or who seems to be a lawyer, walked into the household. So I'll try and make some contact with him and see if he can give us some details. Okay.
Thank you so much for your reporting. We appreciate it. Scott Wolchek there with Fox 2 Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. 2:37. We'll be right back. right, if you're ready for a conversation that is literally out of this world, it's Halloween. Just go with us here, okay? All right, so the Vanishing and Appearing Sources during a Century of Observations project, that is VASCO, okay? They've been sifting through digitized records of the night sky to search for anything unusual in the heavens, and they have found some really intriguing things. So Beatrice Villarreal is joining me now to talk a little bit more about the project and some correlations that you found in the midst of this sifting. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. It's an honor to be here.
I've got to tell you, as I'm reading through this, I'm like, what to what to what? All right, so let's start with why you began doing this work.
Well, I was like actually a PhD student at a certain time, and I was curious to search for stars that vanish, and that had a multitude of reasons. And we started this survey calling this VASCO project. However, we didn't find a star that vanished, but we found lots of like thousands of these light flashes that you can see on an old photographic plate from the early 1950s or on old photographic plates from the 1950s before the first human satellite, and that you don't see today. And these flashes were very interesting because they look like the kind of flashes that you get from artificial objects in space.
So they look like artificial objects. They're there at one point in time, then they're not. Obviously, people will ask the question, could these be evidence of extraterrestrial life?
And I think, yes, it's possible, but of course there are other possibilities. Just because something is artificial in a time when humans didn't have anything up there doesn't mean it's from another planet. The exciting things here is that we have 2 new papers that got published like 1 week ago. One of them shows that they correlate in time with nuclear bomb tests, also with UFO witness reports. And very excitingly, there's a deficit of them in the Earth's shadow at 42,000 kilometers altitude, which indicates that these flashes are really, or a part of them are really associated with solar reflections of something very flat and highly reflective.
Okay, so let's take the nuclear weapon part of this. How quickly, when they're correlated, when you see one and then you see the other, how quickly was that happening, that phenomenon?
Within a day.
And how long was it
within a day
lasting?
from a test. So it lasted a quite short time. So it seems to happen it seems to peak within a day simply, and then it's kind of falling off. So it's interesting. And of course, correlation is not causation, but we see some kind of interesting correlation that tells us that these are not some kind of dirt on the plate. This is not plate defects. This is something real we are watching.
And obviously people will say this is extremely controversial here. What has been the reaction to your work?
There's many people who are super excited. And of course, there's going to be the army of skeptics that try to say, no, it has to be wrong. While we are just presenting the results, and the best fitting hypothesis with these results are currently some kind of artificial or artificial-like objects that are very, like I mentioned, very highly reflective. And yeah.
Have you come up with any other possibilities?
Basically, everything so far that people have suggested is ruled out by the data. So let's see where it leads.
Okay, and what will you all do next? Where does your project go next?
Replicate the findings with other surveys. I'm also hoping that other independent scientists will try to do the same thing, but also use modern telescopes to try to search for similar objects. So we are having a fun adventure ahead of us.
Yeah, and each occurrence, did the shape, did the size kind of replicate itself?
We have no idea. All I can say is that we are probably having, just from the northern hemisphere, we have around 35,000 transients that are associated with these kind of reflections. So you can estimate between tens of thousands to some 100,000s of objects around the Earth.
Wow. And then I'm thinking of, obviously, like there are, one thing, if there's drilling, for instance, in an area, and then people will say, oh, well, there was an earthquake in another area because it was drilling over here. Have people kind of brought to you, all right, this would be naturally, if there was a nuclear weapon that was tested in this area, quite naturally, this would happen?
People are trying to come with various kind of suggestions, but if you try to combine not only the nuke flash connection, but also include the flash and the UFO connection and the visit in the Earth's shadow, and also that some of them are aligned, and to make it more fun, that our best candidates happen on the same 2 weekends as the famous Washington 1952 UFO flap, which is the most famous mass sighting of UFOs for history, then you start saying that you can't just explain it away with one simple explanation.
And what's the most recent sighting?
Well, it's our data is from 1949 to 1957, early 1957. So all of them, all of these objects were seen before the first human satellite was launched.
Very interesting stuff. What do you want people to know overall about your study?
There's something extremely exciting in space, and a lot of things that people may have confused with dirt on the plates seem to be real physical objects, and I think this is something worth of serious investigation.
Okay. This is interesting for sure, maybe to say the least. Thank you for your research, and can't wait to find out what more comes from it.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. 2:46. We'll be right back. .248 right now, and Elmhurst University has a new state-of-the-art facility, $30 million here for 45,000 square foot health sciences building that they say is something that the institution needed, something that the community needed, that will really turn things around both for the time being and for many years to come. Becky Hewlett, Associate Professor and Chair of the Diane Terrell Department of Nursing and Public Health, and also Sarah DePaul, Lecturer and Director of Simulation, are here right now to talk to me a little bit more about this new department that you have.
Hello, thank you for having us. Yes, you mentioned the square footage. We have a lot of students, lots of faculty that are able to collaborate. The community aspect of our new building, our occupational therapy department and speech therapy department are also in our building, along with nursing and public health. And we have community clinics that the occupational therapy and speech therapy departments run for the community for children and adults.
Tell me where you all are right now. I think, with people seeing a doll behind you, people need to understand that first and foremost. Tell me where you are and how that kind of fits into the overall.
Yeah, so we're currently in one of our simulation rooms with one of our high fidelity working mannequins, meaning that the mannequin behind us has lung sounds, pulses, facial expressions, and can vocalize to any of the learners that are in the scenario. And so these are the rooms that we utilize to allow student nurses, OT and speech, to come and get practice. And we really include psychological safety, and we really encourage that they try new things and they try out different things in this area. And if it's a mistake, it's okay to make that mistake because the mannequin will come back and live to see another day. So really challenging the students to get out of their comfort zones and taking in those big steps.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. So these are the hands-on clinics, I guess, that will be happening there. And tell me a little bit about the community services that you intend to provide from there.
We have a clinic that's a 10-room clinic on the first floor of our building, and that's where our speech therapists have their testing facilities and their clinic rooms where they can see patients. And we do have dedicated parking for our patients that come in. They actually have a very full schedule of speech therapy patients that they are seeing and assessing and treating.
Yeah.
And then for the nursing students, it's the patient outcomes. So allowing the students to come in, make those decisions, and do better patient outcomes for the community when they are taking care of those community patients.
It's so important. Yeah, Becky, I'd like to know why this building is so important right now.
I think we all know that healthcare is very complex. It requires a different level, right? Like patient intensity is more than it ever has been. Patients are complex. There's a lot of specialties that work with every patient that we see in the hospitals. And preparing our students is our primary responsibility, not just to our students and our faculty, but to the public. Nursing has been the most trusted profession for, many years. And we do like to continue that reputation, and allowing this building to provide us with an opportunity to better prepare students to take care of patients when they get into the real world is transformational. This building is transformational for us and our students.
Is it accessible now, or will it still take some time before you're actually seeing people in there?
No, we are in it right now. Some of us moved in July. We had our ribbon cutting in October, but we have been holding classes here this fall.
Yeah. Sarah, how does this take things to a different level for you?
So this takes it to a different level for me because our simulation center used to not be on campus. It used to be at Elmhurst Hospital, which was down the street. So by bringing the high fidelity simulation over and the low fidelity area where the students can practice their skills, their assessments, it allows students the access to the lab at all times. So they can come and get their hands on, they can practice and truly get into the real world thinking in these scenarios and within these settings versus having to commute and drive and make extra time to come off campus. So bringing the lab back to campus is really great. And then we can start incorporating more of these hands-on skills potentially within the classroom setting.
Can we maybe go through one of those simulations since you have the model there and maybe one of you explain what the other is doing?
That's really not possible for us in this venue, but we would invite you to come and see on campus, and we can get you involved in a simulation.
Sure. I was just wondering if, obviously, since we have it there, if we could see it. But tell me about maybe getting to this point. What was the process like?
There was years of planning, years of designing, the little details that you don't think about, like where the glove boxes are on the walls, where we put the sinks, where the paper towel dispensers are, what kind of doors we have on each simulation room, the curtains that we put in the low fidelity lab, all of those little details. you don't realize how much planning and preparation it takes until you actually are in it. And we have had a lot of fun bringing our design into really an operational state, which is where we are now.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone was so excited about it. It's a big moment for you. And tell me how this fits into maybe Elmhurst University's overall. Like, are you one of many buildings that are kind of coming up there? Or is this something that's kind of one in its own?
This has really been something that's one in its own for now. Our university has not had a new building on campus for a long time. So it's exciting for everybody. We do have students that are non-health science students coming into the building to see everything. And we've given a lot of tours, and it's definitely somewhere that the admissions department brings new students to see. And so it's kind of it's a special thing for our university.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about, okay, if people are pulling up, how do they get to this building if they do want to check it out?
Well, we would actually want somebody to schedule a tour, so we don't interrupt classes, of course, but there is parking right outside our health science building. And it's a beautiful building that's right on kind of the edge of our campus. So it's quite easy to see when you drive to our campus.
Okay. Anything else that you want people to know about this moment for your department and for the people who will come through for many years?
I think the most important thing is our ability to collaborate and prepare our students. This space is really transformational for us, but not just for us as faculty or a university, but for the patients and the students. All of the patients that our students are going to be taking care of when they leave.
And so also with this new building, where you don't just have the areas for sim and high fidelity, low fidelity, where they can go ahead and practice their skills, but we also have a new immersion room on campus in our building as well. And the immersion room is that of its nature. It projects any image or video onto 4 walls. So it really submerses the learner, and it's interactive. So you can touch the wall and continue on through a scenario. And the nice thing is you can do anything. So you could go out and take a picture of the community and display it in this room and run a scenario. Maybe there is someone down at a baseball game and nurses have to come in and take care of the patient. We could go out and take a picture of a baseball field, and then they are fully submersed into it. So we're very excited for the new immersion room as well.
Wow, really interesting stuff. And then, just the addition of new technology is always fun, maybe sometimes frustrating learning it. But for community members, what does this mean for people who live near or will have access to this building?
It's about patient confidence and community confidence. Our university likes to partner with our surrounding communities, and this is an opportunity to do that. Come and see the space. Come and actually see our occupational therapy students and our speech therapist. We have our clinic downstairs, so the community is always invited to our space.
And too, with that, we do a lot of partnerships. So I know using this immersion room, other disciplines have used it, like within EMS or firefighters or the police officers. So potentially in the future, collaborating with those departments and seeing if that's something that they're interested in coming to utilize could be beneficial to them as well.
Oh, I'm sure they're eyeing it right now, thinking we could do some things too. Yeah. Well, wonderful chatting with you all. Congratulations on this major step and really opening the doors up for the future.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy Friday to you. Happy Halloween. 2:58 right now. Let's go to the big board before we leave you today at 3 o'clock and see how things are looking. Another mixed day for Wall Street, but you can see here that we're sitting in the green at the moment here. Not by much, but we are sitting at the green. So let me just tell you what I'm seeing. I see that the NASDAQ Composite and the S&P 500 have risen today, boosted by shares from Amazon. Really interesting there. This is on the heels of a quarterly report that they just put out, apparently, that their shares rallied at about 10%. I'm also seeing that this is because of the AI adoption that they have done in recent days here. They say that those on Wall Street have bought up shares of this AI-related names today. So some really good things from investors there. Also, I'm seeing that this is a part because of Netflix as well, that they added roughly 3% there. But of course, this is coming off of a lackluster session yesterday. Remember at this time yesterday when we kind of looked at it, it was sitting in the red, and it had been a mixed day as well. But of course, a lot of that is coming off of where we heard earlier this week about rate cuts. But then on the other half, we also saw some things that were positive in terms of the fact that there may be a trade agreement with China. So lots of things to take into